Welcome, everyone. I'm Angelo Robles. I'm the founder and CEO at Family Office Association. As we're doing this video, it's right in the midst of COVID-19. And that certainly has been a grave challenge for many of you that offer wonderful services and opportunities for families of great wealth and their family offices. And I understand you must be feeling the challenges, especially in the New York area and other areas more impacted by the virus where effectively we're being quarantined. And you feel that the opportunity to engage and to, for lack of a better word, get business, because these families are what? They're still investing, they're still using legal, accounting, and technology services. They've somewhat adapted to this new normal. I mean, I know I talk to like dozens of them every day. So it is an opportunity. They need your services. So it's an opportunity to understand, listen, stop moaning. There's nothing we could do about COVID-19. The old acronym ERO, event, response, equals outcome. The event is COVID. Your response to it is the absolutely only thing you have any control over, because you don't really have control over the outcome either. Your response could help determine it, but you don't have control over it. You have control over how you feel and how you respond to something. And there is an opportunity. And that opportunity that I'd like to lead a relatively straightforward interview with is with my friend and fellow colleague in the family office world and neighbor too. This is a weird trifecta. And that would be, you can see him on the video, that would be Russ Alan Prince, who is a author of over 50 books, an advisor to the ultra wealthy, a well-known pundit and commentator and writer in many periodicals that many of you have been reading for a long, long time. And his latest book, Everyone Wins, How You Can Enhance and Optimize Business Relationships Just Like Ultra Wealthy Entrepreneurs. And I thought it was a wonderful book, and especially during what we're going through now, it creates an opportunity to keep your brand, your content, and opportunity to get business from the ultra wealthy. Russ, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Angelo. Thank you for having me.
I mean, really, the heart of it is connecting and getting business, rather bluntly, from single family offices and ultra high net worth clients, specifically during the crisis where people are going to perceive they're being hand tied. And to some degree they are, but that creates opportunity. Why don't I leave it to you to set the stage and we'll take it from there with questioning.
Okay. What I'd like to start is to explain that I'm using a process that is generating a lot of business today and setting the stage for more business in the future. And this process is what we're calling Everyone Wins. The process is not the only way to do this. I'm not even saying it's the best way, but it's working for me and it's working for a number of other people with whom it's literally following the same approach. And it's working really well, to be blunt, in that there's a lot of opportunity. And the logic here is that you're building demand for your expertise. And in the process of building demand for your expertise, you're going to find opportunities as they come along. So you have to sort of think about this in a couple of different ways. First of all, I'm going to make the claim that nobody does anything unless it's in their self-interest. So it's not about you, it's not about your services, it's not about your products, it's not about your expertise. It's all about them. What they care about, what they want, what they need, what they're concerned about, what they're anxious, what their goals are, all about them. And now we have to come to the point where how do we sit there and decide, how do we align this? How do we determine what their expectations are, and how do we determine what our needs are, and how do we make it all work? So with that in mind, let's take another step. By and large, outside of situations like the Family Office Association, where you get to interact with these people, these family offices on a regular basis in a really positive, supportive environment, the only other way you're going to probably meet a lot of these wealthier people, wealthier families, is when someone introduces you. And the person introducing you is usually another professional. Most of the families are not going to share professionals. Now, that's not always the case, certainly, but that tends to be the trend. So we have to get our referrals from other professionals who understand what we do and identify opportunities for us and make the connection. That's the goal here. So when we're talking about everyone winning, we have three people involved, three particular: yourself, the other professional, and the family office, for example. So everybody has to come out ahead. In order to do that, we have to understand what everybody wants. So we're going to put the family office part to the side for the moment. We're going to take them, put them off to the side, and focus on the other professional. So here's how it works for me. I am getting my referrals to these very wealthy families from these other professionals, primarily lawyers. There are certain types of organizations my material has gone out to and people I've connected with. One example is STEP, which is headquartered out of London. But I'm talking to these other professionals. Now, when I'm talking to these other professionals, the issue becomes, what is their self-interest? Not the family itself. What is the self-interest of these other professionals? And my job is to understand that in great detail. So if I'm talking to a lawyer, I need to understand what his or her world is today. And it's very complicated for many of them. They're not getting business. They're getting a lot of inquiries, I find, many times. But most of the people I get to talk to are not doing a lot of business. In fact, a couple of law firms I've been in touch with, they're getting capital calls. The partners are getting capital calls. So things are under a lot of pressure. So it's really a necessity to understand what's happening in their world. How is it working for them? And as I said, this Everyone Wins process is all about understanding them. Now, before you take even that step, you want to really know what you want in each of these interactions. You have to know what your self-interest, why am I talking to these people? Everybody connected with everybody. Everybody reached out to people. But the real question is, how deep did you go with that? How much understanding did you really get? Is it just peripheral, like this is what business is, this is what's happening, it's sort of complicated, it's hard? Or did you really get into it to a, I would say, intense degree and understand what's going on, who are they talking to, how is it working, what are they missing? When you start to be able to do that, we get to the third step, which is, how do I add value? How do I find there's an overlap between their self-interest and mine? Where is this connection going? Right? If you can do that, and it can readily be done most of the time, it becomes pretty easy to help them understand who they can refer to you. Because in this process, what we're doing is identifying their network and relationships and clientele. We're discerning who might be good candidates for our expertise. We're helping them frame our introduction in a way that is persuasive and powerful. And if we can do that, and it can be done again, then you're going to get opportunities. Now, some of these opportunities are not going to come together at this moment. If the family, for example, is wrapped up and concerned about other issues than the type of stuff you're doing and provide, you're going to put them on the list. The way I've been doing it, I've been writing up all these index cards of all these possibilities and pulling up shoeboxes, high tech. But the point is that I have a lot of index cards right now and a lot of possibilities, and some of these possibilities are turning into business today. In fact, a lot of them are. And the amount that's being, I'll say, set for the future is going greater and greater. Now, that's the oversight, the overview of how this process sort of plays out. You really have to understand these other professionals in great detail, what they're doing, how they're working, what's working for them and what isn't. And then your job is to understand where you fit into their world, and more importantly, how this works, where the opportunities can come together. You're driving every step of this process. So let me run you through how I can do it sometimes, I'll say tactically. So I'm talking to a lawyer, and we're talking about them. I am not selling anything. I am not trying to introduce what I do. I am not talking about any service or product or anything of the sort. My entire focus is on what their world is about, understanding where they're coming from, how they are working, what they're doing, and how to make this effective for them. Right? That's the focus, intensely. It's not about me, not about what I do, nothing of the sort. So the way I've been doing this is we talk about this. I ask them when they think this might abate, when the world will get better. How do you think this is going to play out? When's it going to sort of get to a point where business is, I'll say, more normal than it is today? And everybody gives me a date. And the dates span everything from a couple of months to years away. The particular date really doesn't matter. The question I then pose to them is, let's say they said it's going to end January 1st of 2021. I asked them on January 2nd of 2021, what have you done between now and then to recoup any business you might have lost and then really escalate and supercharge your business for the future? And most people, haven't thought about it this way. Most people are more in the process of treading water or trying to just deal with the issues today or answer the phone and make sure nothing falls apart. But very few people are actually planning for this future and what it's going to be and how to think about it. And that provides the opportunity. That provides the opportunity to say, okay, what are you doing with certain clients, and what are you doing with these situations, and what are you doing in this world, and how many of these clients do you have? So I understand when I'm done with all of this, how many clients they have that are of interest to me, that would fit my expertise. I understand what they're doing with them today. And in fact, when I do this most of the time, I actually know who I'm talking about. So we're not just talking about concepts when this is all said and done. What we're talking about is literally particular case examples, particular families. And when we're talking about these families, I am actually getting an understanding of the potential referrals that might exist. So we call it funneling. In these conversations, I'm going from the big to the specifics about the family, how these families work, what they're doing, what this professional is doing for those families, how they're thinking about it, how it's coming together. So it really isn't just talking about anything that I do per se. I am understanding them. I look at it this way. By doing this process of discovery and really understanding how these professionals work, think, act, and the type of clients they have and what they're doing for them, they're giving me all these facts. All this information is coming to me. It's now my job to connect the dots and make a nice picture out of it all. So I have to understand these people. I have to understand how it works for the professional. And I have to understand what can be done. And it's all on my shoulders to figure this all out during these conversations. Now, to make it really work well, I have to be able to show that professional how, by making that introduction to me, they're going to also, in some way, shape, or form, benefit. You see, in my world, I can't refer business to these professionals. I'm getting them from their peers. So I cannot, in a sense, trade clients, to put it that way. So I can only take clients. So I have to show them other ways to think about this, other ways to look at this, so that they are motivated and incentivized to provide me with the type of clients that can be helpful, that I can be of value to, and that they benefit by doing so. That's the whole purpose of Everyone Wins. And the process is really centered on not only understanding them, but then showing them how these connections work and they get value out of it. Now, the problem is that for many professionals, this is not the way they usually do things. There's no pitching of anything. There's no discussion of what you do. There's no selling. I've mentioned this. I really need to emphasize it. It is really all about what's happening in that professional's world, that lawyer, the accountant, the money manager, whoever it is you're talking to, who you're looking for referrals from. It's all about them and what's happening in their lives and how that comes together. So this is the essence of the process. Your job is to connect with these other professionals who are looking for solutions. And that's a key element here. They're actually looking for things. They don't know what to do either. They're running around trying to figure out what's the best way they can get business. How can they get more revenues? How can they generate more money with their existing clients? What can they do? And our job is to help them do that. So you take a couple of simple examples. Now, you can help them generate revenue, and it doesn't have to be with family offices, for example. So let's say the lawyer has a handful of family office clients. They have another bunch of clients, other wealthy people, maybe not at the same level. If you can show them how they can do business and be more successful with these other people, for example, and they understand the type of clients that you're looking for and know how to introduce you, then by what we call the law of reciprocity, by you helping them be more successful, they will very likely help you become more successful, especially when you give them a game plan to follow. So that's the goal, to help them be more successful based upon what they've told you during this discovery process. By helping them, they're going to in turn find opportunities to refer to you. They're going to become your advocates. And that's what we're aiming for them to become an advocate. Now, I'll give you a couple of easy examples that we've used with the lawyers. Many lawyers have will files, lists of people that they exist in their world that they haven't gone back to in a long time. And they're expecting, as I was told, well, when that client wants to do something new, they'll contact me, which is not always the case. So one of the strategies has been to take a junior partner and have them contact people in the will file based on some screening mechanism that was, screening system that was put in place. So we have the junior partner contacting people in the will file who have not come back recently, who have probably needs that the law firm can address. And we're doing this in person. We're not sending out emails. We're not sending out video. We're not doing podcasts. We're making telephone calls or video calls. This is a business of interaction. This is a business of person to person. This is a business of trust. And that happens when you're talking to people. We need dialogue. So sending stuff out is not going to do it. But we find that when the junior partner, for example, starts making these calls, we're starting to find some of these people in that will file are actually going to be responsive and want to do something, some down the road, and a good number of them sooner. So in helping them with that idea, they generate more money. I am tracking that. And I'm using that in our discussions with them to say, okay, I'm helping you do this. We made a few $100,000 more. Now, remember, when these type of clients come along for these kind of services, I would like to talk to you about it and see if I fit. And if it does, I would like to have this kind of introduction, and we work that out as well. That's what we're doing. We're helping them understand opportunities, and then we're helping them work those opportunities, and then we're helping them understand how they can refer to me, for example, and we're putting it all together, and business gets done. And it's getting done now because all the other professionals are also looking for solutions. And if you can have some of these ideas and present some of these ideas, they tend to work pretty well. So by pulling it all together, we're starting to get the type of results we want. So we get business today, we get business sort of built up for the future, building demand, and it works pretty well. Now, there's a couple of catches to this program, this approach. It's time intensive. It's a lot of work. For example, if you're talking to another professional it usually takes 2 or 3 meetings before we start getting real traction. So the first meeting is just sort of make sure we're on the same page and I start to understand what you're about. The second meeting or so, it starts to evolve, and we start to see, okay, if we can do this with you, would that work in your world? Can we sort of bring it over to mine? And by the third meeting or so, we said, okay, let's start talking about some real situations and see what happens. Again, the more I can talk about their real clients, real live family, so to speak, instead of talking about concepts and ideas and what I can do, and then we talk about their clients and what they can do and ideas for them and how this can work in their world. They're showing me their book of business in a sense. And I don't know the details, but I get a good feel for it. And it's up to me to decide and figure out where I would fit in and how this would work. So by going out and doing this, you're getting this pipeline. And that's how we sort of think about it. We're building this pipeline of new opportunities. And it's all based, exclusively based on the interpersonal relationship you're building, the level of rapport you're creating with these other people. Now, some people have come to me and said, but I have this, I'm really good and this is great, and we have this great technique and we have this great strategy and we have that's wonderful. That's all really important in the long run. But nobody has ever talked to other professionals and said, I'm really not very good at what I do, but I try hard. Everybody tells you how great they are. I got that. And it's up to you to vet the people you're working with. But at the same time, if you don't truly understand how them giving you referrals in some way, shape, or form is going to help them, or how you're going to help them along the way, they're not going to do this. It doesn't matter how good you are. There are other people who are also pretty good. They're not going to do this because you showed them something that's unique. It's not going to carry, especially in this environment. Everybody's looking to understand what's important to them. And going back to it, you have to ascertain what is most important to them. Now, from both a personal side in some respects, and certainly on the business side, you have to spend the time to figure out how this is going to work and how this comes together. That's the process. And what's really critical to understand is that today, because we're all on video, because we can reach out to people that might have not been as responsive before, because we can have these conversations, you're in a really great position to go build out your network, build out these referral sources, really understand them, really understand how they work. And when I mean really understand, I know the compensation models of every lawyer I'm talking to. I understand everything we're talking about and how that translates into, for example, more money, not only for the firm as a revenue line, but actually into their income. And it isn't that hard to find all of this out. See, all you have to start with is, why don't you tell me about your practice? Or why don't you tell me about your company? Or why don't you tell me about your firm? And something along those lines. The idea is to use open-ended questions and to understand and listen carefully, and then use more open-ended questions to probe and go deeper, and people tend to share more than ever before. And in the process of them sharing and helping you understand this, you're in a position to really start to see what you might be able to do to be helpful in their world. And then we depend on the law of reciprocity to generate business. It's not a complicated process, and I'm sure most of you are doing a lot of these pieces. The question I then would ask you is, how systematic are you? How methodical are you in reaching out to people, understanding their world, and then putting this together in a way that you can show value to them, value to their clients, and making it easy for them to refer you? So let's talk about that for just a moment. If you think of your referral sources, these other professionals in this case, have you ever really sat down and said, these are the particular type of clients I want. These are the particular issues I'm looking for to solve. These are the details I'm trying to deal with. These are the matters I need to resolve for them. So it's not just, I want them to refer the best, highest probable client to me, not just people they deal with, not just a family office. It has to really fit into my sweet spot, because when it does, the probability of me closing business becomes, goes through the roof. At the same time, the people that I'm talking to, I spend a lot of time helping them understand how to introduce me. So it isn't, he's a consultant that works with families. They will really break it down to identify how I'm going to help them, what I'm going to do, what issues I'm going to address. They also explain how I work, because before COVID-19 came along, I was practicing social isolation anyway. So I was never going anywhere. I was never traveling. So the clients had to understand that. The clients understand how I got paid. I get paid up front in total for my consulting work. I don't get paid. I don't invoice. I don't do contracts. I don't sign things. This all is, the referral sources all understand this. They've all made this very clear to the clients. Clients have bought into this. And then I come into the picture. So it's not just you understand, you have to also help them, these other people, understand what you do and how they would literally refer you. And so, for example, if you asked a bunch of your referral sources how you get introduced to their clients, how they would introduce you before you showed up, how they would refer you, you get the same answer consistently. Is it the answer you want? Are they doing it in a way you are most comfortable with or most effective? And if not, there are steps you can take to make that the case. So, Angelo, do we have any questions, or did everybody understand this amazingly well and can just jump into it tomorrow?
And a reminder for our live audience today through Zoom, you could send in a question via a chat feature. While that is potentially happening, I'll ask some questions. So my corporate relationships inside Family Office Association, and it's relatively a limited number, and I want it that way, like a dozen, compromise what I call my resource council. One of the most powerful techniques that we've discussed before, but it's not utilized as much, is somewhat what you're talking about, but among the brethren, among the 12 higher level, high-end providers in my organization. Let's say that one of them is an ultra high-end insurance agent on life, and one on P&C, and one on real estate investing, and another on asset protection. Yeah, bumping into my families at SFOs is great. It's called collisions at events, and we'll get to that. The world has changed at a little bit of a later point when I wrap up. But wouldn't they be better off focusing on the fellow advisors inside the brethren of commitment to a corporate partnership, and teaming up and cross-sharing and referencing relationships they meet inside and outside of FOA, and developing a bond in the way that you're describing that's mutually beneficial?
Well, there's, it's low-hanging fruit in a sense. If everybody on the call, for instance, can talk to the other people on the call or in your resource council, if everybody understood each other's businesses well, if everybody understood all the other activities they're doing besides Family Office Association to generate business, if everybody understood how they can add value to each other, then there's all probability there would be more business being done between the members of the resource council. I mean, it's just it's just math in a sense. But you really have to understand the other people. You mentioned a high-end insurance agent, for example. Okay, today, a lot of wealthier people, not only family offices, but just wealthier people, because of their business interests, because of what's happening, have cash flow issues. And one of the ways that people are opening up cash flow opportunities is restructuring insurance. Okay, so that insurance professional needs to help the other people understand what this possibility is. But more importantly, that insurance professional has to understand and reach out to people and understand their businesses. So yes, he or she can add value, but he or she also has to add value to the other professionals. Now, again, there are a lot of people that they all, you connected with them because they're part of this group and they're motivated and they're interested in the same universe, obviously. But do they really understand each other's world? And there's a high probability that some do, but many don't. So while I'm going, for example, against this lawyer universe, this is a great place to start among themselves. And the idea would be any person that you are dealing with, any professional who is connected to this world that you want to do business with, you need to really understand not only them and how you can help them and why it makes sense for them to introduce you under what conditions. And too many people spend most of their time talking about themselves. So for example, when you get two of these people, two professionals going to lunch in the old days, which was a few months ago. So two of these go to lunch, they spend most of the time telling each other what they do, instead of really trying to understand what the other one really is all about. If you do discovery well, and you're learning about the other people, and this applies not only to other professionals, but applies to the families, it applies to everyone. When you're in that phase of this, doing the discovery, we have something called the 10% rule. The 10% rule goes, if I'm talking more than 10%, that means I'm not learning what I need to learn. If I'm talking a lot because I'm explaining what I'm doing and how I work and how great I am or my process or whatever it is, I'm not learning about them. And fine, there's a place for explaining that, but I want to tie that explanation very tightly to what's most important to them at that time and how that works. So yes, going back to your point, Angelo, it would be really smart if the people in the Resource Council took the time to learn a great deal about each other. It would translate to a lot of business.
So the old way of doing things in the way that you described it, and let's stay on the premise of the life insurance agent going to a T&E attorney and saying, I am the best at what I do on life insurance. I'm going to benefit and be of value to your clients. Now, again, that might theoretically be an accurate comment, and that may work incredibly randomly, I don't know, 1 in 100 times. Your approach is very holistic and much more patience. People don't seem to have a lot of patience. And now when we're not really, at least in many parts of the country, getting together at the restaurant to discuss this or in the office to discuss it, we now need to probably have an existing relationship, and whether on the phone or in Zoom, but do the mechanics change just because of COVID-19?
This is the approach I've been using for a decade with a great deal of success. What has happened with COVID-19 is that the speed at which it translates into business has just accelerated. So the approach isn't new. The approach is sort of fundamental. It's human nature. Understanding what it's about, helping somebody achieve something, helping them achieve their self-interest so that they would be motivated to help you achieve yours. That's sort of fundamental. What's happening in this environment is that it's all getting sped up, where it might have taken 6 months to sort of get the traction in the past, it's now done in a month. If you take this approach, it happens much faster. The other thing is that because of the way this is all set up, you can do a lot more of it. The time that you're spending, or the ability to talk to more people is just, you don't have to travel across the country anymore. Everybody technically is domestic and national and international. Everything's easily available because we all just get online. So as I was talking to Angelo, in the past, I would have to take a train, spend 2 hours to get into Manhattan, spend 2 hours for lunch to do what we're talking about, and then take a train to 2 hours back. That's 6 hours. Instead, I can do 6 meetings and get 6 times the effect, right? So it's much easier now than ever before to connect with a lot of people And if you really spend the time and you do it well, and it takes practice. I mean, it's not going to just happen immediately for some people, but most of you have, I'll say, the fundamentals, if not a lot of the advanced components of this. What all I'm suggesting is you take it and approach it very systematically with a real sort of strategy behind each step of the process. And by doing so, you're going to generate more business, more opportunities, more possibilities, and it becomes a numbers game. If you generate all this opportunity, certainly some of it turns into business. And that's what we're focused on.
I think an important part of what you said, and I'll reiterate it, is in today's world of COVID-19, you're correct. Going into New York City as an example and having the meeting and the time and the travel and to some degree the expense, especially if you're going to get on a plane. I mean, you can now, in theory, be much more efficient with your time. And be every bit as effective because we're all going through this. It's not like you're rejecting that person for a meeting. They also have the same problem that you do. So the perspective that I gave, the old way of doing things, which is talking about what you do, what you're describing is that person is understanding the other party that they're approaching and looking to be beneficial to them, effectively their bottom line and their dollars. That sounds like a very, very patient approach, but that probably is not going to result in more immediate business to the person that wants the immediate business. And henceforth, you have that chicken or egg in terms of to be successful, do you need to take time?
Here's what happens, or what's been happening. And as I said, I've been doing it. Some of the other professionals I've dealt with are doing it. What we have found out, we thought that by doing what we're talking about, we'll be building demand for when things get better. What really happens is that the clients, the other professionals, everybody else is working on their own timetable. Different issues come up in their lives, needs come up, possibilities come up. It just happens when it happens. What we're doing is setting ourselves up to be the person that's going to be called when our services are needed, our expertise is required. So in reality, what has turned out to be the case is, yes, there's a lot of things that you have to be patient because the client isn't ready. A lot of people, for example, are not going to be switching money managers so quickly. You're just going to sit it out a while, for example, as I've been told. Okay. On the other hand, things pop up. Things are happening and business is getting done now. Now, I don't know when I'm talking to these people who is going to act today and who wants to act later or what the circumstances are. I have no clue because I haven't asked the questions yet. I haven't understood what's going on. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know how much value I can add. None of this, I just don't know yet. But what we are finding out is that people still need to do business. People still need to do planning, for example. People still need types of insurances. People still are really concerned about their portfolios, right? I don't know who those people are at this moment, but if I have this net that I'm casting and I really understand who these professionals are dealing with and what's happening in their world, they are finding me people that fit my expertise because it's a big enough net and there are people for whom this is happening and it's happening now. So it's not just, 6 months from now when this all gets better, wow, I'll have a lot of business. Business is happening today. And when 6 months come along, I'll just have a lot more.
I mean, I'll give the audience one example. I'll try to keep it relatively short. There's something in consultant circles known as a tabletop simulation, a tabletop exercise. And actually now during COVID-19 is a great time for that. And how could this incorporate to what you're doing, not theoretically being a consultant, but having the resources and the relationship. So imagine this, you get the advisor and the family together in the example. They might have a family office, they might not. And you present stress testing, which is something that we don't have time to go into now, but that Russ and I have spent a lot of time on, and what if scenarios. So the what if scenario is, here's the principal, he's 74. God forbid, but let's imagine, he got COVID, within 24 hours, he had to go on a ventilator. right before he went on a ventilator of his $200 million estate, he gave durable power of attorney to his millennial 33-year-old daughter. And now she's coming into the advisor and into the family office. Ta-da, look at this. I'm in charge. Did you ever really connect with me in the past? Oh, and also, where's the latest will, the estate plan? I don't even really know exactly what we own. How is it organized? That is the recipe, potentially, of getting sued. But you're going to lose that relationship. It's just not going to happen. So before any of this happens, as we learn from what if scenarios in COVID-19, is this an exercise that you could work with your fellow advisors, clients, or prospects, playing through a half-day scenario of 3 key what if scenarios, cyber attack may be another. Got a little off track, but again, keeping my ear to the grindstone of all the families I'm talking to and initiatives that we're doing in Family Office Association, these are the things that we're seeing. Don't make excuses that you can't do anything. This is a bad time. You have to reverse that mindset, and you need to be proactive. Russ, how important is it, and we're coming a little bit to the home stretch here, do advisors need to position themselves as a top thought leader with content, with being seen and being known, with getting out there, with creating their own podcast, whatever it might be? It's more of a marketing question coupled with what you're discussing, but how important is this?
Look, being a thought leader, I'm going to use my definition of thought leaders. A thought leader is a person who is recognized as a leading authority in a particular field. And there's a second part to my definition, and is able to monetize that positioning. So being an expert and getting no business because being an expert, that's nice and that's wonderful, but that's not the definition I'm using. I have a commercial aspect to it. Being a thought leader by definition means that you are sharing information that's helping create a profile and brand for you that makes it easier for you, for example, to connect with people, easier for them to hire you, for example. So being a thought leader is very effective. Now, the way it works today, at this moment, okay, it's different than a few months ago. The way it works today at this moment is, for the most part, it's still personal. It's more personal now than before. Sending out lots of stuff to everybody sounds great, but think about it in your world. How many emails do you get now? How much are you really reading? What are you actually focusing on? So just lots and lots of stuff isn't always the answer. Being more targeted tends to work. And I'll put it this way, I have a huge library of content. I mean, huge, of things tied to the family office. Angelo mentioned the books, there are articles. I just have a huge amount of material. So after I have connected with a professional, after I've connected with these other people, I use that material to follow up with them. So I'm putting thought leadership, instead of reaching out to help create conversations, I'm using it to enhance the existing relationships. So there's lots of ways you can use it. It's always going to be essential. It's always going to be very effective. But today, more than anything else, and you have the networks in front of you in the form of Family Office Association and the Resource Council members, for example, this is about being human. This is about connecting as people. This is about understanding each other. And this is about making sure that everyone succeeds.
Russ, in kind of concluding before I do a wrap up, I think I might have opened up a can of worms, but a good one, using that word stress testing. It was basically a subtitle of the book that you were the lead author. I was a co-author on. It's something that we're talking about in virtual family offices in that tabletop simulation that I mentioned earlier. And kind of the example that I would like to give to that is, imagine a scenario where you have an ultra high net worth client, and do they really need to stress test what they're currently doing? Well, if they're going to play out what if scenarios, the answer is absolutely yes. So here's a common one that I hear. Oh, we're a $200 million family. We have a top legal firm. We did our estate plan 4 years ago, had a little tweak to it 2 years ago. It's good. Now, a stress test to that could be you saying, well, how do you know? Are you like a world level expert estate planning attorney yourself? And by the way, you're not really going to know until you die and how it interplays with your heirs, with lawsuits, with taxes. There's going to be a part of this that you really don't know. So how could someone who services the ultra wealthy possibly get a foot in the door, whether through a fellow advisor or directly by recommending stress testing, and how do they go about it? And could you do this in 2 minutes?
Yeah, 2 minutes. All right. So let's do it my way. All right. I'm going to approach it my way. My way means that I have spent a fair amount of time understanding the people I'm talking to. For me, the core of all of this is what we call discovery. Do you understand who you're talking to? If you understand who you're talking to, a lot of information sort of comes to you. And you're going to take that information and you're going to ask questions about it. And if they're uncertain, if they're making the right moves with their family and the estate plan because the world has changed a little, if they're uncertain about anything, their probability that they're willing to reevaluate or consider or look at what some of the planning they did, stress testing, as Angelo pointed out, becomes, goes right to the top of their concerns. So it's easy refining to get into the discussion of stress testing, provided you do this real intense discovery. Discovery is key to make this work. That questioning, that understanding, that is the essential element that drives everything I've been talking about today. And stress testing, it just actually just shows up and sort of fits in. It just flows in from this and other related discussions.
Well, everyone, it was great to have Russ on. We have so much more to cover, but again, we're limited in time and don't want to throw too much at you. We gave you some great stuff. What I recommend everyone does is Russ Alan Prince. Again, go on Amazon and get his book. Everyone Wins is fantastic. I highly recommend it. I read it. I'm going to read it again. You all should too. In closing in my minute, besides the fact that I concur, and I've learned from Russ over the years, hey, we all have to have mentors. And he's been very, very valuable in terms of to me. But to give some context, my resource council knows who I am, but those that see this in video as an advisor. So to give a little context to it, I'm the founder and CEO of Family Office Association. We're based in Greenwich, Connecticut, and we're among the largest and most tenured of the true membership organizations dedicated to single-family offices. I do a tremendous amount of proprietary content. I could almost keep up with Russ relative to books, magazine, podcasting, and writing hundreds of research and white papers, hosting global events, a little bit on hold with COVID, but converting that into now doing daily online video meetings and rolling out new initiatives, including the tabletop simulation that I noted and online portals for our family to communicate. You got to adapt during today's times. And I'm not really looking to grow much with advisors. I've been, since COVID-19, 6 times the level of revenue coming from new families joining, meaning real families, $100 million families, as opposed to revenue from a corporate engagement. That sometimes look at it only as if you're not hosting an event, then I don't get the value. Now, admittingly, might the cost have to come down and the value proposition changed? Of course. But the level of context from knowing thousands of families to hosting daily meetings to putting together structures and organizations and families that reach out to me for advice and guidance creates an opportunity for the positioning of select firms. And again, maybe I'll add 1 or 2 more over the course of this year, but it's relatively modest. But as an advisor or those servicing the community, feel free to reach out. A pretty big Instagram following. You could follow me there at Family Office Association. On YouTube, it's Family Office, or my main company, of course, Family Office Association. I could be reached at angelo@familyofficeassociation.com. Thank you all for listening in live. Those of you that hear this on YouTube or through one of my connections, that's great. And certainly thank Russ Alan Prince. And again, I highly recommend his book, Everyone Wins. Everyone, thank you for being a part of it. Thank you, Russ, for joining us today. Everyone, have a great day. Thank you.